Today with us we have an esteemed Member of Parliament and Mr. Jacob Rees-Mogg. Jacob Rees-Mogg was born in Hammersmith, London in 1969, worked in the finance sector and a founder of his own successful company. Currently a British politician serving as the chairman of the European Research Group since 2018 and a member of the Conservative Party, he has been a Member of Parliament for North East Somerset, or God's own county, since 2010. He has been characterised as socially conservative and, under the last government, David Cameron's worst nightmare. A filibuster and campaigner for Somerset's own time zone, and I believe until relatively recently the record holder for the longest word uttered in the House of Commons. Jacob is a Catholic and grew up attending weekly Mass and occasionally Sunday school at the Church of the Holy Ghost, Midsummer Norton. He entered into Eton College, where he was described in a school report as particularly dogmatic, which I find rather amusing, and yesterday appointed as the new leader of the House of Commons. So good morning, Mr. Rees-Mogg. Firstly,
Good morning. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you. I'd like to thank you and say it's a pleasure and honour to meet you on this fine English morning we have, and congratulate you on your appointment. Has it come as a surprise, actually?
Well, it's a great honour, yes, and a surprise.
Oh, very good. So do be assured of our Confraternity's prayers and support, and if there's any way that we can help at all, we will most definitely help with you.
Well, thank you for your prayers.
So I'd like to begin, if you wouldn't mind, by exploring a little bit of your Catholic life. So growing up as a Catholic, what are your fondest memories relating to that?
That's a very good question. It was just a habit that what we did was go to church on Sundays. I can't pretend that when I was little I found this the most exciting thing to do. I think to some extent one grows into the faith, but the regularity of Catholicism and the rhythms of it are very reassuring, and you build those up in childhood.
Oh, that's lovely, yes. Did you ever go on pilgrimage in your youth?
No, I've never been on pilgrimage. I have been to Jerusalem once as a child and once as a youngish adult. Neither occasion on formal pilgrimage, but I did visit the central sites.
Oh, very good. Well, I think that was something that might be worth having a look into. Maybe we could organise something together one day.
Thank you.
I understand that you attend the traditional forms of the liturgy. What attracts you to the ancient forms of the Mass?
I do when possible. I think the Tridentine rite is much richer, that there's more time for contemplation, there is more silence, but there is also more reverence for the Blessed Sacrament. It is throughout the Mass viewed as something central, it's what the Mass is about, and everything that relates to it, whether it's the cloths being used, or the chalice being used, or the priest's communion, it is all focused on reverence to the body of Christ and the blood of Christ. Whereas in the new rite, it's sometimes rather noisy, that sometimes the most important bit seems to be a rather lengthy sermon rather than the Eucharist.
Yeah.
And therefore it's about the balance, it's about the richness of the experience. And the more I've gone to the extraordinary form, the more fulfilling I have found it.
Oh, that's wonderful. I'm really glad to hear that. So while growing up, did you ever have aspirations or felt a vocation to the priesthood or religious life?
No, sadly not. Though with 6 children, perhaps reassuringly not. But no, I've never felt a vocation. I greatly admire those who do. I think it is a great gift.
So you always felt a vocation to married life?
I think that overstates it, really. I think that I didn't feel a vocation to the priestly life. I probably felt the pulls of the secular life.
I see, very good. So then, going on from that, what is the importance of marriage to you, and what do you think that importance is to society at large?
Well, marriage to me personally is fundamental. I'm extremely lucky to have a wonderful wife and 6 fantastic children, and that is a great blessing. I think in terms of society, People have difficult and different circumstances, and you can't lay down a law for everybody that they should live in the same way, because that's not realistic. But that the outcomes for children who have a stable background is better than those who don't, and marriage provides very considerable stability.
Very good, thank you. Okay, so with wonderful names such as Peter, Anslam, Sixtus, etc., do you support or see a religious vocation in any of your children?
Well, I hope with 5 sons, at least one of them might have a vocation in due course. I feel that's the least that we can do for Holy Mother. And my brother has 2 sons as well, so between the 7 of them, there must be some chance. Though I do suggest to my daughter that she might like to become an abbess, but she doesn't seem to think this is her current ambition, but she's only 10.
Oh, right, we can keep on sowing the seeds. So then, why did you get into politics? So, in other words, are you namely a politician who just happens to be a religious man, or someone that's gone into politics for religious purposes? Or is it not quite worded correctly for you?
No, I think that the secular life is a useful life, that one has to use the gifts that one has been given by God. But there is not a religious zeal in the secular life. But, I've been nosing onto your iPad and I see you've got St Thomas More in one of your questions, and his approach is surely the right one, that you're not trying to bring the religious into conflict with the secular, you're not trying to impose the religious on the secular, but that if they clash, if there's a fundamental clash between the two, then the faith must be senior.
Very good. Thank you very much for answering that so honestly. You've already mentioned Thomas More quite a bit there, but how do you think he would react to today's society? Would he be a conservative, or would he not get involved in politics?
It's very difficult to say which political party long dead people belong to. Thomas More had radical inclinations and very conservative inclinations. He was a friend of Erasmus. He is willing to mock the world around him and tease those around him. On the other hand, he has very conservative attributes, particularly in terms of his religious views, and very anti-Luther and so on. So it's hard to say where he would be.
Very good. That's a very sensible answer. So it's my understanding that you actually find quite a lot of time for your spiritual life. You pray the daily rosary and you attend mass as frequently as you possibly can. Do you think that you find enough time for the spiritual life?
Oh no, don't begin to. I mean, the daily rosary takes 10 minutes, so it's not, no, for all the blessings one has received from God, only to spend 10 minutes a day saying thank you is not much in the way of recompense, is it?
No, not quite. So do you think that you could, I suppose with your new position it's going to be even more difficult, but do you make a conscious effort to try and include more time for the spiritual life, or is that something that you want to work towards?
Well, I enjoy saying the rosary, so it's not a punishment.
Of course.
So, but no, I doubt that my spiritual life will change particularly.
Very good, okay. So I would like to ask, what do you think uniquely characterises the English Catholic Church?
Well, historically we had a great loyalty to the Holy Father and the Holy See. The English Catholic Church went through the great persecutions, and that has helped form it as a church that understands what it is to be outsiders. The Catholic Church in England is not part of the establishment, it's outside the establishment, and I think that's a good place to be, actually. And that has given the English Catholic Church some of its flavour compared to continental churches, which were part of the established state until much more recently.
Brilliant. Going on from that, how indebted do you think Western society is to the Catholic Church, and particularly England, in respects to morals, arts, literature, law and science and that type of thing?
Oh, I think Catholicism, Christianity is central to the culture that we enjoy in the United Kingdom and across the whole of Europe and the United States, that Christ's teachings are essentially the basis of all human rights legislation,
yes.
aren't they? That do as you would be done by, love thy neighbour as thyself, resonates throughout all these attempts to create a society. So even though society is increasingly secular, the values it's based on have a direct link to Christ himself.
Very good, thank you. So here's a bit more of a weighty question. Where ultimately do you believe the right to govern comes from? Omnis potestas Deo or omnis potestas populo?
Well, I think it depends really on where you see free will, doesn't it? And I think if you take the gift of free will, you then see that the free will has been exercised to create the societies that we have, and that those have evolved, and they come from individuals, but there are no individuals without God.
Very good. Very good. Okay then. So linking into that again, would it be fair to say that you don't believe in the separation of church and state, or would you believe in separation of church and state?
I am pleased that there is an established church in England, because I think it maintains a link, formal link between the state and Christianity. But I'm also pleased that it's not the Catholic Church, because I think it is easier not to be the church of the establishment, as I was saying earlier. But I think the overwhelming majority of decisions that the secular arm takes are best taken without a religious involvement. And why do I say that? Well, the Church, Holy Mother Church, deals in truth.
Yes.
It doesn't deal in speculation. I think, whatever I think about prorogation, the current argument of the day, there is no way that can be influenced by the Church. There is no moral aspect of it. But whatever I think about prorogation may turn out to be wrong.
Yes.
And therefore the Church has no business involving itself in things where it may be wrong, because if the Church can be wrong on its view of prorogation, could it be wrong on the resurrection? And then that's fundamental. So the Church protects itself by avoiding the variabilities of political controversy.
I think that's very, very wise response and answer there. So following on from that again, what role do you see the successor of St. Peter having in relation to other countries' governments then?
Well, the Holy Father has the right and the duty as bishop and teacher to express his views on a wide range of issues, but he also has authority on specific issues.
That's
And the teaching capacity of a bishop and the authority of the Holy Father are not the same thing, and it's important not to confuse them.
Okay. So I think we'll leave that part there. If it was agreeable with you, I'd like to actually go into a few moral and political issues more specifically. So it's clear from your voting history that you take the stance of the Church on moral issues very seriously, supporting the Church's teaching on marriage, abortion, in reality eugenics by supporting the terminally ill by standing against euthanasia.
And also I opposed mitochondrial transfer.
Oh, very good.
Which I think we should be very concerned about.
Why do you think the key reasons for
Because it's genetic modification. If people say it's curing a disease, it's not curing a disease, it's creating a different person.
Right. Thank you for going into that. So it's even more illustrated by that case that you stand very clearly with the Church's teaching. With recent cases, even though this was in France with Vincent Lambert, also in the UK, there's the recent case of the 5-year-old girl named Tafida, who suffered a brain injury due to a rare condition, whereas the NHS doctors says there's no hope for recovery and the most humane thing would be to allow her to die. However, clinicians at the hospital in Genoa, Italy have offered her treatment, but the High Court will decide on whether to force the hospital to let her travel or not. But the Board of Commissioners at the hospital remains adamant that they would not allow the patient to leave according to legal documents. There's also the similar case of Charlie Garrett, with the high-profile case of Alfie Evans as well, where the Pope even tried to personally intervene. If at all, what should the government do to stop the medical system from denying treatment for patients whose families want to try it?
I don't in the end think this is a religious issue, I think it's a political issue.
I see.
And it's on the balance between the power of the state and the power of the individual. And in Scotland they have proposed having an appointed state person who has responsibility for every single child. And that is saying that the state knows best how to look after children against parents. And I think this is absolute nonsense.
Yes,
I think the power should be with the parents, and that there's a huge arrogance in the state saying we know best. And actually the state doesn't know best. Do you remember there was a case in Hampshire where a little boy was being treated for cancer, and there was a new treatment available in Czechoslovakia, and the parents were Czech Republic, and the parents wanted to take the boy there. And a European arrest warrant was issued to arrest the parents for taking their boy off to have this new treatment, which, as far as I understand it, has worked. 5 years on, the boy flourishes, and he would be dead if the NHS and this very heavy-handed use of a European arrest warrant had succeeded. Surely you allow parents to take these choices, but it's not fundamentally religious, it's fundamentally what is the balance of power between the individual and the state, and I've always favoured the individual.
So, an IKEA worker in Poland has been sacked for quoting the Bible verses condemning homosexuality. He said, "I've been hired to sell furniture, but I'm a Catholic, and these aren't my values." Again, there was a similar case with the Christian bakers. Is society having a double standard? Is it intolerant against Christians and their beliefs?
Well, the question is, how should Christians behave within society? And they should be free to express their beliefs and have their beliefs. But it is not very Christian to go around causing offence.
Of course.
Judge not that ye be not judged comes to mind.
Judge with right judgment as well.
And so it's not an easy matter that we want to create a harmonious society, and there is a time and place for everything, and people should follow the golden rules to do as you would be done by, and if they do that, you'll have a harmonious society. But religious toleration is an important part, certainly, of UK society.
Okay. Do you feel that that's under threat at all in the United Kingdom? Religious freedoms to hold controversial religious opinions in public life?
Well, it's completely routine religious opinions, actually. I think the liberal left are deeply illiberal, and they dislike anything that they disagree with. But it's not just on religious things. They're absolutely fanatically anti-Brexit and can't understand anyone to think anything. And they were all for euthanasia and want to kill people off. And yes, they don't like people holding contrary views. So there's all the more reason for politicians generally to put the case for freedom of speech and, of course, toleration of religion. That it's very often the right that is in favour of liberty and the left who thinks it knows best.
There was an issue here that a priest friend of mine actually put forward to me. He said, how can the Catholic Republic of Ireland legalise abortion and same-sex marriage, while non-Catholic Northern Ireland is resisting such legalisations? I don't know if you want to comment on that at all.
I think neither country is as religious as it once was.
Yes. I think there's a bit of a contradiction. What I find very confusing about Ireland is they voted to keep the Angelus, but yet they voted in abortion.
They voted to keep the Angelus?
Yeah.
What do you mean? I mean, you can't abolish the Angelus, but...
Sorry, it was on national television.
Yes.
Every day it's sent out, you see, but they voted to keep that.
I think that the issue in Ireland is much deeper than that, and there have been terrible scandals in Ireland.
Yes.
And that has weakened the church, and shameful, wicked people within the church have done the church great damage.
And that's something that I actually would like to go on to a little later on. Can you tell us a little bit about the Northern Ireland, the situation in Northern Ireland about this proposed abortion expansion and same-sex marriage expansion, an amendment to the Executive Formation Bill.
Well, that was passed into law in the event that there is not a new Stormont Assembly by the middle of October.
Do you think that's fair on the people in Northern Ireland, considering the majority of people are actually against those positions?
I mean, I'm very much in favour of a new Assembly being created. I didn't vote in favour of these proposals on the grounds that they are devolved and ought to be decided in Northern Ireland, but it is now the law of the land.
Did your religious convictions play a part in your voting on that?
As it happens, they didn't, because I was voting on the devolution issue. But if the devolution issue hadn't been there, I would have voted against extending abortion.
Okay. But you've been described as someone that holds political views as high Tory, reactionary, a traditionalist, a nationalist, socially conservative, a right-wing populist, and out of the place from the last century. What would you say to them, and how would you describe yourself?
Well, I can't both be a populist and an out-of-place person from the 19th century,
Yes,
can I?
yes.
Unless being an out-of-place person from the 19th century is very popular. I say nothing. I mean, people are entitled to have a pop at politicians. I don't mind any of that.
I was going to ask, do you think you're actually targeted then due to your class and religion at all?
No, not particularly. I think I express my views and I express them clearly, and not everybody agrees with me. And therefore they say this is terrible. That's fine, that's politics.
Okay, very good. So it's more, they can't handle your honesty rather than...
No, people in public life get attacked. That's just the way of the world, and if you think of any politician with any profile, there will be people who say he or she is wrong, is awful, etc. I mean, the criticism I get is nothing compared to some other figures.
Very good, thank you very much for answering that one. Okay, so with the Vatican II reforms, there's evidence there's been a decline in the faith, with practicing Catholics that adhere to the teaching and the understanding of their obligations. It's evident there's a crisis because the belief in the real presence, priesthood, divinity of Christ, perpetual virginity have all gone down. Really, this could be laid probably at the Church's footsteps for failing to catechize people. Divorce and annulments on the rise and a decline in mass attendance. Individuals like Nancy Pelosi and Piers Morgan and Ian Duncan Smith, who said you don't have to believe all what the Church teaches to be a Catholic or hold a position in public life. What would you have to say to someone that thought that, particularly a politician?
But I think you make a very good point. Catechesis has declined considerably within the Catholic Church, and that is one of the unintended consequences of the Second Vatican Council. I don't think they ever meant that to happen, but it did. And attendance has declined, vocations have declined. But it's really interesting that some of the more traditional groups within the Church are doing stunningly well and attracting young people into the priesthood. In London, the Oratorians have a very strong attendance at Mass, and they have a queue of people waiting to join them. I went to Florence to the
Institute.
The Institute, that's right, which is flourishing, absolutely flourishing. It was quite amazing. It was the most beautiful Mass I went to with my wife, who isn't a Catholic, and anyway, it was quite a long Mass, and she loved it too, which is always a good sign if a Protestant can cope with Mass. It was beautifully done, but it was amazing, all these young priests and seminarians. But it's because they do things
properly, traditionally.
You're not allowed to say properly. The ordinary form is proper.
Right, I see. Very good. Yes, no, I agree. I was actually going to go on to the point that there are flourishing traditional communities at the moment. Do you think that is because young people today are looking after the liberalism that we've lived through, a bit more discipline and direction and affirmed belief?
It's truth, and truth is very powerful.
Very good. Okay. There is a very witty and funny sketch in Yes Minister on Anglican bishops, saying that the perfect candidate is a cross between a socialite and a socialist. How accurately do you think that can be applied to our own Roman Church nowadays?
It's a sin to criticise priests.
St. Thomas Aquinas did say if there is a problem with the Church, it is the laity's opinion to duty to actually voice up and make themselves heard. I'm not asking you to condemn individuals, just behaviour as such.
I think the job is to pray. We're dealt with by a higher authority.
With the secularisation of the United Kingdom, with nearly 2/3 of young people in the United Kingdom never praying, and 59% of young people in the UK saying they don't attend religious services at all, do you think the liturgical reforms, the scandals of late, are to blame for the decline in the faith, or do you think it's more to do with new ideologies such as communism and socialism and humanistic ideals that have grown, or a combination of both?
I think there are a number of combinations. I think the scandals have been very damaging. I think the scandals led to a strong dip in vocations because people just didn't want to join an organisation that had behaved like this. And I think the laity felt very betrayed by what had happened, and the desire of the church to cover up rather than to reveal, which was very, very strident. Not only was what happened disgraceful, but the response was just as bad. And that is a remaining problem. The liturgical reforms have been off-putting for many people. I mean, I don't know if you've ever been to a children's mass. Children don't enjoy it, as far as I can tell. I mean, I don't understand the point of them. And I think children enjoy the mystery. My children prefer going to the extraordinary form to the ordinary form, possibly because it's shorter. and children don't have endless patience for Mass. But that's not a silly point, actually, that I think growing into the regularity of Mass, it just being there, but it not being too onerous for children, is a good thing. And the extraordinary form is beautiful, it's there, it's routine, it's always the same, and just becomes part of life. The ordinary form is often longer, noisy, and slightly random in its approach, and the muddling around with lots of different Eucharistic prayers.
Yeah. I think it's prone to the idiosyncrasies of individual priests. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely, I think that's absolutely true, whereas the extraordinary form